Hi, so we're going to talk today about how to make really good choices when learning new music. Because, as much as I hate to say it, harder isn't always better. So, we're going to talk about what proportion should that be so that we get just the right amount of learning and just the right amount of, okay, I've got this. All right, so F holes, buckle up. We're going to chat about practicing the 80/20 rule. Welcome to Advice for F holes. I am so excited to talk to you about all things strings. We're going to talk to teachers, we're going to talk to performers, we're going to talk to learners of string instruments so that we can figure some of this shit out together. Because playing a string instrument is not always easy, and sometimes it's vaguely inappropriate. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a topic each week, we're going to pull it apart, and I'm going to say what I need to say, and then you're going to comment, and hopefully we'll figure some of this stuff out together. I'm your host, Tracy Emerson. I've been teaching strings for over 30 years. I started playing violin back in 3rd grade, and there are a lot of great things that I've learned over the years, a lot of great things I've shared over the years, and still so many things that I'm puzzled about. So I hope you'll join me on this adventure as we figure some of this out together. Welcome back, F-holes. We are going to talk today about the 80/20 rule. So to help you remember that, here's my recipe for this delicious cocktail. 80% cranberry juice, 20% ice and vodka. There you go. A little blend of ice and vodka. Not all 20% vodka. Got to have a little bit of, you know. Anyway, it's really delicious, and it's going to help us remember 80/20. Cheers. Oh, that is good. Much better than that chamomile tea garbage. So here we go. We're going to talk about what is the right level of challenge when we're learning something new. So we all have struggled from time to time with a new piece that is just impossible. We've all put music in front of our students that was either way too hard, way above their skill set, or something that they could just breeze through and not really get a lot out of. So I am not the first one to come up with this idea. I've heard it from many, many other musicians, many other teachers. But if you try to balance it with 80% of solid core, you already know what the heck you're doing, and then 20% of something that's going to be a stretch. It's going to be a stretch musically or technique-wise. It's got something new to it that's not going to be there the first couple of tries. That's going to take chipping away at. So I know that we've all had performances, and we've all heard performances where you go, they overshot it on that one, didn't they? Or, oh man, those kids are playing something that's probably 3 years beneath them. Let's ramp it up a little bit. Okay, and again, we've all done that, and we all do that from time to time. So what are we going to do? What we need to do when we're learning something new or we're teaching something new to someone else is we need to make a really good assessment of what are my skills? What's my skill set? What's established in there? What's my next move? Am I just learning third position and now it's time to put that into a context? That's where you really have to know your playing. You need to know the reality of your students playing so that you can bring something to them that's going to guide them and not frustrate them out. Okay, because nobody wants to learn something that's so hard and an impossible task that you never actually sound good on it. It's your best shot is mediocre after putting in hours and hours and hours of hard work. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Okay, so if you are working on an entirely new piece, right, and you look at it and you go, okay, I can't sight read 80% of this right away, but if I listen to it and pretty much I've got it under tempo, got the gist of a big grand amount of this, 80% of it, then I probably can handle the other 20%. This also works in smaller chunks. So for example, for orchestra music that I play that I have to practice, again, some of it is not going to be crazy. And then you get that one page notes and the slurs and the string crossings and the accidentals. And it's just like somebody threw up notes all over the page. And now you got to make that happen. So again, it's easier to tackle that if you go, okay, that's 20% of my piece at the most. That's where I have to do my work. Okay. Now, the next step in that whole thing is, what are you going to do with each piece of that puzzle? So your 20% is probably going to be some new techniques or some techniques that are particularly challenging, like I just mentioned. Like I've played string crossings, I've played accidentals, I've played slurs, I've played 16th notes, and I played them really fast. These particular ones are going to take me slowing it down, figuring it out piece by piece, and then upping the tempo to get it up to where it needs to be so that 20% complements that 80%, and we've got something good when it all comes together. All right, so the 20% is where you're going to spend a lot of your time and energy. But I feel like we take that 20%, whatever that hard part is, and we just go at it full throttle and kind of forget that it's in with any other context. So one thing that I can recommend doing that's worked really well for me is practice and isolate one portion of that 20%, one portion of that difficult passage, and then integrate it in so that it makes sense with the rest of the piece. The 80%, the stuff that comes pretty easily, probably isn't perfect either. So use a moment to stretch yourself on the part that comes a little more accessibly. Okay, so take a moment to feel what that vibrato needs to be in that passage. Work on your bow division. If you're getting a tough tone quality in part of it, think about where your bow needs to be. Take that 80% and make that a little bit of a stretch for you to kind of up your game a little bit in terms of musicality. Okay, so that when you take that 20% and you work it back in, it's worked into something that's really lovely and something that isn't just, okay, I'm hacking it all together. So tempo of success is another thing that we've all heard, we've all dealt with before. So when you practice, don't go speed demon on the part that's really easy, because then you're going to miss a lot of nuance. You're going to miss a lot of opportunities to explore what part of the bow you should be in. And definitely when it comes to that 20%, take it a notch slower than you need in order to play it correctly. Because if we're constantly pushing that limit and barely getting it there, again, there's so much nuance to it that we're going to miss out on. So if you have this passage, like I just mentioned, with the crazy raucous 16th notes, I'm going to practice that extremely slow. And I'm going to do 4 notes. And I'm going to make sure I'm in the right place with my bow for all the string crossings. I'm going to make sure I know across the string where my whole and half steps are, so those accidentals are spot on. And then I'm going to take the next 4 and I'm going to do the same thing. So next, I think most of you have worked on this idea, but I know I have a lot of students that don't know the idea of how to work the transition between 2 little segments. So I'm just going to put that out there in case you're a learner and this is an idea that hasn't crossed your path yet. But when I do those first 4 16th notes, instead of doing 4, 4, and then bam, 8, there's a lot that happens in between those 2. So what you want to do is practice just the first 4 16th notes, plus 1 so that you know what's happening next, so that you work the actual transition between those two places instead of constantly just trying to glue them together. Bang. So very often I'll do 4 notes plus 1, then 4 notes plus 2, and then 3, and then 4. So that way I'm rolling into that next part. So there's continuity of getting there, not just this plus this equals, oh, okay. So that's one of my strategies for learning something that's in that new difficult category, the tempo of success, and then your transitions from one part to the next. Then comes the delightful moment where you get to get the metronome out. Yeah, I'll drink to that too. The metronome is necessary and wonderful, and it's a taskmaster, and it's that drill sergeant that we all really need. So again, being realistic with the tempo that you pick, but also it doesn't mean I'm going to play this whole passage now. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, good. I've got it at 96. Boom. Check. Okay. Did you really do well at that tempo? Was it consistent? Good. Time to up it. Okay. Now, oh, when I pulled it up to 112, I can get the first 3 patterns, and then that fourth one is just a mess, and then I can get back on and do the rest. That means that I'm going too fast. That means isolate that one pattern, get it so that it's up at that same level, and then see if you can integrate it back in. So it's painstaking, but it's so rewarding when you just cook it, when you finally got it all together. All right, one more reason to really spend a lot of time on that 80% is because more often than not, your little difficult passage has something to do with the rest of it. I mean, you have your time when you're working on your development passage in your concerto, and it's like, well, this is a mess. It's everywhere. It's just crazy, one note to the next. But it's all drawn from somewhere. And so knowing the core of the piece and knowing that easier part is going to help you when you're struggling through that 20% and really analyzing it and looking at it and going, oh my gosh, this is the same thing in a minor key and up a fifth. So knowing the piece as a whole, that 100% is really going to help an awful lot when you put those two pieces together. So good luck with your 20%. We've all been there. And I hope this has brought you a little bit of wisdom, maybe a little bit of a practice idea. And if you have some ideas that go along with this, please put it in the comments section. I would love to see what ideas you have in terms of balancing that it's too hard, it's not hard enough, so that it's just the right so you make some growth. All right, see you next time on Advice for F-Holes. Thank you for listening to Advice for F-Holes. Please subscribe and share your comments below so we can have a great conversation.